Hi, this is Tim McCrite. I designed an app for iPhones, iPads, iPod Touch called Metalsmith Suite. Let me show you how it works. It's called Suite because there are actually 12 components. Let's start with a basic one. We'll go to the convert units. This is a kind of basic thing, converting inches to feet and so on. And you'll see that there are several options here, weight and length and so on. Let's just show as an example. We'll use weight. Let's say we're converting penny weights to grams. So you'll use the first scroll wheel to select whatever it is you're starting with, let's say penny weight, and tap it. And when it turns orange, that's your cue to type in a number. So choose a number and then spin the second scroll wheel to whatever you're converting to. In this case, let's use grams. And then you touch the equal sign and the answer appears. This demonstrates the underlying logic that works throughout the programs. Scroll the right-hand wheel and you'll see that the calculations shift on the fly. Okay, let's try another one. Let's show drawing length. The idea here has to do with drawing a wire, and the question is, how much wire will I get when I draw a large piece of a certain size down to a different size? Or to think it through the other way around, I need a certain length of smaller gauge wire. How big a piece of heavy gauge wire should I start with? We'll set the first wheel to the starting length. Let's, for example, say 12 inches. And then we'll set the center wheel to the gauge. So we're starting with a 12-inch piece of, let's say, 10 gauge BNS. We, of course, have options to use other measurements like millimeters. Now we'll set the right-hand wheel to the destination gauge. Let's say 22. We'll tap the equal sign, and there you see in the final length, this shows that a 12-inch piece of 10 gauge wire will end up at this length when it's drawn to 22. All right, let's try another one. We'll go back to menu, and let's shoot for the cost of sheet metal. Now this is a fairly complicated calculation to figure out the weight of a piece of metal, the price of metal for that weight, and then do the math. Well, Metalsmith Suite does it all for you. First thing we need to do is enter current spot price. If you are connected to the internet, if you're in a Wi-Fi spot, for instance, when you tap the spot price arrow, it's going to go online and download the current prices for silver, gold, and platinum here in the small white numbers. You manually enter those up above, and you can round numbers. You can enter just the ones you need, or enter them all. Once they're entered, we'll go back to the cost of sheet metal page, and we're going to enter in the size of a sample of metal, so height, width, and thickness. Let's, for instance, use inches and say 2 inches by 3 inches, and for thickness, I'll go with brown and sharp, and I'll enter 18 gauge. We tap the equal sign, and that pretty sophisticated calculation happens instantly, and we see what the spot price of that sheet of metal would be. If we change the metal, so we go from, say, sterling to fine silver, it will instantly shift on the fly and tell us that cost, and on up to gold, and so on. Note that this is the spot price. There would also be a manufacturing charge added on. That's going to differ from supplier to supplier. There are several other calculation softwares, but let me show you another type of part of the Metalsmith Suite. If we go back to menu, you'll see toward the bottom of the menu there are 3 items grouped together. We'll sample the equivalent numbers. This is not a calculator, but you'll see it's a chart or a table. And in this case, we're seeing the equivalent numbers, for instance, in thickness, in millimeters, gauge, thousandths of an inch. And I find this handy drill bit sizes. This is a nice thing to have in your pocket when you're in the hardware store trying to match drill bit to a wire size. Let's go back to menu again and take a look at gem properties. You'll see here a long list, actually 50 popular gemstones. Choose any one of them and you'll see a close-up of the image. You'll see some details about hardness, heat sensitivity, and down below some text that will explain something about the stone, its history, sometimes its folklore. And back to menu one more time, go all the way to the bottom, and you'll see that there's an instruction sheet that explains how to use all of the apps. It's called Metalsmith Suite, available from the iTunes App Store for $3.99.